Thanks for tuning in at Brackeys.
Hello everyone and welcome to video number 23 in the How to Make a 2D Platformer course. At this point we have a lot of subsystems working in our game, but we still need to define when the player loses. So we kind of need to introduce this idea of a game over state. So that's what we are going to do in this video. Also, if you have any questions, go to forum.brackeys.com. So let's open up Unity. As you can see, I've pretty much left the project as is. I've simply organized it a bit. I took some scripts and placed them in the scripts folder and some stuff under the animation folder as well. I also noticed that we have two additive materials. This one is for the muzzle flash, so I'll call this additive muzzle flash. And then we have this additive generic particle one, so I'll call this additive particle. And drag that into the materials folder as well. So I think that's pretty much all we need to do. We might also go ahead and make an audio folder where we can drag in the respawn countdown. I don't think we are going to be needing a folder for physics materials. Alright, so let's just save that. You will also notice that I have updated my version of Unity to Unity 5.3. This introduces a bunch of cool features. One of the most exciting ones is having multiple scenes or grouping scenes together, so you can see multiple scenes in the hierarchy here and load scenes easily and manage scenes at runtime. So that's a super cool feature, and that allows you to do a lot of streaming assets and stuff like that. But that's not something we're going to cover in this video. So basically what I want to do is give our player a certain amount of lives, because right now when we die, if I play the game here and jump down, the player simply respawns. And that's just fine. However, I want to kind of introduce a bigger penalty for dying, and therefore I think we should have maybe 2 or 3 lives, and when we don't have any more lives, we need to kind of start over and begin back at wave 1. So in order to do this, I think we should jump into our GM object here and begin coding this idea of player lives. So let's open this up in Visual Studio. And you can see that we have this set up so that we have an instance of our game master. And that's of course a static one, so we can access it through the type. And then we have a bunch of public variables, non-static variables that sit on that instance, so that we can easily integrate it with the Unity inspector. But this idea of player lives is something that I want to sync across and make very easy to access. And therefore I'm going to make it static. So I'm going to make a public static integer. And actually let's make a private one, and then let's make an accessor. So we'll have a private static int, and this is going to be a player. I really want to think this through now. So this is going to be remaining lives, and it's going to start at some variable. I think we're just going to start it off at 3. And then we're going to have a public static integer, and we'll capitalize this and call it remaining lives. And this is simply going to be a property, so if we want to get the variable remaining lives here, we will simply say get return underscore remaining lives. This way we can only change the lives remaining inside of the GM type or class, but we can get it by simply referring to the variable type. So that's pretty awesome. Then what we can do is every time we call this kill player method, you can see that we currently just destroy the player object, and then we start this respawn player coroutine on the instance of the game master object. And before we do this, we can simply decrement the amount of player lives. So we can say player lives, or remaining lives it was, here, minus equals 1. Or you can just say minus minus. That's up to you. I like to write it this way. And then we can check if underscore remaining lives. And we want to check if this is less than or equal to 0. Well, then we don't want to respawn the player, then we want to end the game. So this here is going to be an else statement. So we'll just pop that up there and make a tab. And here we're going to call some kind of end game method. And I think we're going to make this local so we can set up some references. I don't know whether or not this will be an enumerator. I think we'll just start out by making it a normal method, and then later we can always add the functionality. So for now it's going to be a public void, and this is going to be end game. There we go. And here we can simply call gm.endGame like that. And it should be fairly easy, and in here we'll simply make a debug.log statement saying that simply saying game over. Alright, so let's try this out and see if it works. So I'm going to hit play here. You can see that it loads in here, and I'm going to jump down 3 times. That was the first one. This is going to be the second one. And the third time here, it says game over. And notice that we don't hear the respawn sound and all that. So we have this custom case that we can fill up with some UIs, some sound effects, all that. So that's great. I also kind of want to have a counter here for how many lives that we are currently at. We could make this using some hearts, and that would be pretty cool. But for now, let's just do some text. We can always change this later. There's no reason to spend time on unnecessary detail at this point, because I think you know how to do most of this. So let's do this under the UI overlay maybe. And we can make an empty in here that will just expand onto the entire screen. And we'll call this player info. Just in case that we want to have more than one thing in here. And for now, we'll just create a simple text object that will anchor to the left-hand corner up here. At some point, we might put it on the player himself down here. That might be better, actually. I almost like that better. Actually, let's do that. I've thought things through now. So then we need some hearts if that needs to be cool. Let's do it up here. Let's save ourselves the hassle. Of course, you can just stick it onto the player info that is attached to the player object and all that. There are plenty of tutorials on doing these health amounts and that kind of stuff. It's basically just a sprite that you slice. I won't go into it now. So here we'll simply say lives and a colon and then the amount of lives, and we'll just start that off at 3. And the font here should be Lilliput Steps, just as all of the others. And I've noticed that some of the fonts sometimes look a bit blurry, especially when scaled up. So in order to compensate for this, we can go into the computer pack, find the Lilliput Steps, change this from smooth to hinted raster, and the font size to 32. That should get rid of that blurriness. You can see how much sharper it looks now. That looks fairly decent, but we probably want to move it a bit away from the corner so it's not stuck up there. And I think I want to capitalize all of these because I like the font with capital letters. That looks better. We can maybe also bump up the font size to something like 20 and make the color a bit more cool. So we could do a black one with a white outline, or maybe the inverse. So we'll create a shadow here instead of an outline, and just give that a little bit. I actually like that a lot. So I think we'll just stick with that for now, and we can always change it later. We could also color this red because it is our lives. Nope, That looks ugly. Okay, so this is going to be our text for now. And I think we'll just create a simple script here that will retrieve the info about our amount of lives to here. And this is, of course, not the most ideal way. You could create some kind of, what should we say, action or event that triggers whenever a certain or the lives change, and then subscribe this to the event and all that. But instead, we're just going to create a simple script because it's not going to have that much of an overhead. So let's just go in here and go under New Script. And let's type lives counter UI. Let's do that. And let's also call this the lives counter. If it wants to update, lives counter, there we go. And let's double click this to open it up in Manual Develop. We'll just reload everything here, or in Visual Studio, I should say. And first off, we want to be using Unity Engine.ui. And we want to create a, let's do a serialized field and make this a private text object. And we'll simply call this the lives text. And we want to require that component here, require component type of, and then we'll call it text here. And at the beginning, we simply want to, let's not make this a serialized field. Let's instead just get it through the start method here, or even better, the awake method. Delete that comment there. We'll simply set lives text equal to get component text. Cool. And then in the update method, we can simply find the remaining lives here. So we can simply say that game master dot remaining lives, that is the amount of lives, and we can simply say that we want lives text to be equal to that as a string, but it will automatically convert it to a string if we do this, and then remember to put in lives here and a colon and a space. It doesn't convert, well then we just do dot to string, and now it should be happy. Okay, it's because we want to do dot text there. All right, so of course we could do some checking if the variable has changed and all that, but really it's not necessary. This is not an expensive call of any sort. So we'll just have that sit there. And if we hit play now and jump down, we can see that changes to 2 immediately. So that's perfect. Cool. So now that we have that working, we can actually implement some logic for what happens when the game is over. And again, I want to go under our UI overlay and create an empty object here, because I kind of just want to display a game over screen with a quit button or a restart button. And so we'll make a empty object, call this the game over screen or whatever you want to do here. Again, we want to fill the screen with this. And by the way, to do this, I'm holding down Alt and then clicking. And then let's make another UI component here, object. This should be a panel. And we want the texture here to be the white texture. And you can go under the game here and see that if we make this black and then with a certain opacity, something like that looks pretty cool. And that's fine. So that's just going to make sure that our UI stands out from the background. And we are just going to call this background. And then on top of this, we can make another UI element. And this is going to be a text object. And it's going to look very much the same to you here. So we'll scale this up. We actually want this to be centered, I believe, but we'll see. And we'll change the font type to Lilliput Steps. We'll bump up the font size. We'll also center this there and there. That looks pretty cool. We want to change this to Game Over with capital letters. We want to change the color to a red. And I think I want a shadow here that is white, completely white, and with an offset of 3 and -3, something like that, and kind of an old school arcadey look, which I think is pretty cool in here. And then we can rename this to game over text. Let's make a few buttons here. So we're going to have a UI button, and we definitely want to size this up. There's no reason for it to be so small. Something like that looks fine. And again, I don't want this soft button look, I don't think. Or do I? Actually, we might keep that. But I definitely want it to be kind of dark, maybe even black, and then with a bit of opacity. It looks pretty cool. And then the text object should again be Lilliput steps, a much bigger font size. And that's just a temporary error. If you want to get rid of that, you normally can just disable and enable the object. There you go. I don't know why it does that, but it's been doing it for a long time. And let's just make the text of that button white here. And we can call this the quit. And we are also going to have a retry button. We're going to say retry here. And that's really all you have to do. I mean, this looks kind of okay. I definitely think you should spend more time than me on this. Maybe I want these to be kind of a gray here and then not transparent. I might actually like that better, but I don't know. We could try adding a red shadow. Let's just try this out just for fun. So let's make that red, completely non-transparent. 3 and -3. That's not bad. We could do a bit more here, so 5 and -5. That's actually kind of fun. I might stick with that, I don't know. We can try changing these from UI sprite to just the white texture here. To make it square. Yeah, that's much better. And I actually kind of like the look of this now. So we'll change this from the retry button to the, and this to the quit button. And that should be all. And let's just see how that looks in game. You can also see that the mouse over here still works, but you can of course customize that if you want it to be more clear. It could be pretty cool with a scaling effect of some sorts here. Now that I've seen this in the game, I kind of want to scale the game over up even further. So let's just give it a tad more there. And I think that will be good. So definitely experiment with this more than I have here, but I kind of want to move on with the video. So what we could do now here, and what I think we should do, is have some kind of game over screen manager, some kind of object that sits here and makes sure that everything works as it should. And there are a bunch of ways to do this, frankly. But I think we should just add a component and kind of get coding with this. So we'll call this the game over manager, game over screen. We call this the wave UI. So we'll actually call this the game over UI, I think, just to stick to our convention. And we'll just double click that, again, reload all, and that's fine. So this is going to be using Unity engine.ui. And we're going to have a bunch of stuff in here. First off, actually, we might not have that much stuff in here. We might not even need a UI reference or need to include the UI namespace. Actually, the first things that we want to create are some methods that we can call using our buttons that will either restart the game or quit the game. So we'll make a public void here called quit. And I don't think it needs to take in any arguments, which is simply going to call application dot quit, I believe. Yep. And it's also going to throw a debug.log just because it won't quit our application while we're in the editor here, saying application quit. something like that. And yeah, so that looks good. And then we'll make another public void, and this is going to be the retry. And I think we're simply going to restart the level here. So application.load level, application.loaded level. That's not a method. Nope. That's a field. Good. This is good. Looks like this is obsolete. Okay, so this is a feature in the new Unity, I believe. And I think this will work, but it will tell us that there's a newer way to do it. Yeah, so here, Unity engine.application.load level int is obsolete. Use scene manager.load scene instead. Okay, so let's try this out. So I haven't actually done this yet. So scene manager, like this. Maybe we need to include something. Scene manager.load scene. So let's just load up the documentation here, and we'll figure this out together. So go to the scripting reference, and hopefully this is already documented here. And let's search for scene manager here, and we'll see that we can load a scene. All right, so name of the scene to load, scene build index of the scene. So we can use either one of those. And we have to specify a mode, which looks like allows you to specify whether or not to load the scene additively. So that will basically allow us to load scenes onto other scenes, or whether or not the scene that you want to load will replace another scene. But we just want to, okay, so it's under Unity engine.scene management. So if we just do scene management, okay, you actually have to load that in. So using Unity engine.scene management, right, it's right there. So now we can say scene manager.load scene. And we actually don't need to specify the mode, it looks like. And then we can simply say scene manager.loaded scene. No, that's not something we can do. Get active scenes. Get active scene here. I think that's what we need to do. So scene manager dot get active scene, and that's probably a method. Something like that. Should hopefully work, or not. From scene to string, that returns a scene, get scene at, get the scene at index in the blah blah blah, get scene by name, get scene by path. Okay, so I'll just quickly research how to do this, and I'll come back in a second. Alright, so that was really, really easy. All we need to do is simply do a dot here, and we have access to both the build index or the name. So whatever you want to do here. I'm just going to load by the build index because an integer is a very small data type, so that's going to be just fine. And now when we save this, it's going to restart the game here. We don't need a debug.log statement because I think this will be pretty clear that it's happening. So we can now see that this warning will disappear, and we can clear this out. Here, remove all of this. All right. And now all we need to do is link this up to our buttons. So we can go under the game over here, find the retry button, and add an on-click event. And we're going to drag in the game over object here, go under game over UI, and find the one called retry. And under the quit button, we'll do exactly the same. So add an event, game over object, game over UI class, and find the quit method this time. So now if we try this out and hit play, we can try quitting first. And the quit currently restarts. Did I mess this up? Looks like it. So this is actually the quit button, and this is the retry button, and therefore we need to switch these two. So game over UI, quit, and game over UI, retry. So let's try that again. That's kind of important that those aren't switched in the final game. So let's try quitting. And you can see it says application quit. And if we retry, it restarts the game there. So that's perfect. So now that we have all of that available for us, we kind of need some kind of transition for this game over object. And I think that we might just fade it in. But we should definitely make some kind of animation for this. And in order to do that, let's add a component here. Let's make this a canvas renderer. Nope. Remove that. A canvas group is what I'm looking for, where we can control the alpha of all objects simultaneously and do all kinds of stuff, just to have that there. And then we can add an animation here. So we'll hit create on this, and first it will create the animation that we want to have, and this is going to be the game over fade in or something like that. That's going to be fine. Save that, and it's automatically gonna create a game over mechanism animator. So now we can actually do this animation right here. So the first thing that we want to do, we might try simply fading this in. But actually what I would really like to do is fading in the background and having the other elements kind of pop in from the sides. So I think we should try that instead. So let's just pop out from this mode and create a canvas group here so we can control the alpha and don't need to mess around with the color in case we change that later and don't want it to glitch with the animation here. So now we can go into animation mode again, and we can simply change the alpha here. So it's going to start off at 0 and then go to 1. So we'll just make this 0 here and simply switch these two. And I don't know how long we want this animation to be, but we'll see in a second. So that should fade it in over a period of a second, and a second seems just fine actually. Then we have the game over text. We of course want to change the position of this, so we can start by simply quickly moving this back and forth here. So that's going to be our end position. It's going to be there. And down here, we simply want to move this out of the frame. So this way it goes like this. And that's going to be just fine. We want to do the same with our two buttons. So we can simply, whoops. We can take these two and just quickly wiggle them there. And the X position of both of them, I believe, should be 0. There we go. And that's going to be our end position. So we can drag that over there. Oops. Yeah, that looks about right. What is this? This is the canvas group alpha. I think that's just fine there. And then here we can take the position of the two and just drag them down by holding shift. You can drag on only one axis at the time. So there you can see how that looks. I think that looks pretty cool actually. So let's just make sure that when we are at this point, those look like that. And this one is at alpha 0. So now we can go under the curves here, select all of this, focus on it, and we can right click and go to flat. So that will smooth out the motion here. And I think we now have a pretty cool fade in animation. So now we can go under our game over animator, and we can see kind of what triggers this. And I think that we'll just have this triggered using the enter point, meaning as soon as we enable this object. So we can simply disable it, and then as soon as we want the game to be over, we enable it through code. And a very, very simple way to do this is if we go into our game master object, in here, we'll keep a public or a reference to this. I'm going to make this a serialized field make it private. I know I haven't done this with these variables, but this is better. And we'll make this you can either do a game over UI or a transform. I'm just going to make this a transform. And we are going to call this the game over UI. Wonder why. And then when we call the end game method here, we call the game over a debug.log statement, all we need to say is game over UI dot set active. That is a method for game objects. Game object here dot set active. And we want to put in true here. So I think that should pretty much do it. All we need to do now is make sure to drag that in on the slot here. So you can see that says none. We drag in the game over object and apply this. And I think we should try this out. So let's hit play. Let's jump down a few times. You can see our lives decrement every time here. And now when we reach 0, it should pop up with the game over screen. Oh, and you can see that it loops here. All right, so that looks really dumb. So let's quickly stop it from looping. And all we need to do is simply select the game over fade in and remove the loop time here. That means that it will only play once. So let's do this again. If you want to test this a bunch of times, of course, recommend that you decrease the amount of lives so you don't have to wait every time. But I believe that it should be working now. So it goes to 0, the game over screen comes, and you can see that as soon as the enemies don't have a target and we've disappeared over here in the hierarchy, well then they simply stop chasing. So it looks like the game has frozen, but it has not, and therefore we can still do a bunch of animations and stuff if that's what you wanted to do. So that's super cool. A lot of people, when they make a game over screen, they simply make it pop up and then they freeze time in the game. And that's fine for maybe a pause screen, but with the game over, you often want to play some cool sounds, have some cool animations, and that gets ruined if you pause time. So I believe this the best way to do it. And you can see that we can now quit it and it says application.quit, or retry and we are back in the game at its beginning state. So that's basically all I wanted to cover in this video. I also think it was pretty long, but it's important to have a game over state for any game or the game won't be challenging. So I felt this was a really important video and I am already looking forward to the next one. So I'll see you guys in the next video.